Harford Run is this creek that no one knows about. And it's a story of real possibility of what Baltimore might become again. Down underneath of Central Avenue, there's a stream. It's been there for eons, and at one time it used to run into the Inner Harbor. The Inner Harbor was probably surrounded by emergent marsh. The water was crystal clear, full of oysters, crabs, fish. And now, as everybody knows, it's a completely different story. The water is super contaminated. There's fish kills every spring. And in part, it's because of the history of how we've converted this land from forest and wetlands to streets.
Baltimore's Inner Harbor is one of the most polluted water bodies in the entire Chesapeake region. It consistently gets a D or an F on the statewide report cards. Overall, it's plagued with urban stormwater runoff. We have historical pollution from 100 plus years of industry.
Back during the 19th century, Harford Run was placed in a canal. Central Avenue used to be called Canal Street. But over time, they felt that they needed to continue to use that land. And so what they started to do is cap it. So sometime by the early 20th century, it was completely out of view, out of sight, out of mind.
Every city, when they needed roadway, had to cover over a river somewhere and put roads on top of rivers to move a lot of cars. You know, the site of that covered roadway is also the site of the most disinvestment, and you know, it's an Achilles heel in cities that are trying to reinvent themselves as beautiful, great places to be.
I mean, right now it's just another storm drain. So what it does is it channels dirty water really quickly into the harbor.
So the Urbanite does this really neat thing when they pair two people who have somehow come to their attention doing interesting work, but unrelated, and says, here, you guys go get together and come up with a new idea, and we'll publish it. And it's kind of a shot in the dark.
Each year we pick these two people, put them in teams, and we say, create something. You start from nothing and see what you come up with. It's really an experiment in inspiration, collaboration, creativity. And so Gabriel and Eliza just got together, and this is what they came up with, the idea to daylight Central Avenue.
And they paired us together, and you know, we start to look, where's our common ground? What do we have to work with here? A couple years ago, I'd written an article for the Urbanite on Seoul, Korea. This city was doing something that was an example for cities everywhere. They now have along both sides major projects, including a new town. And, you know, they're redeveloping because this is now waterfront property. And it was beautiful, and it made sense, for a lot of reasons.
Sitting in this room, and we get up afterwards and introduce ourselves, and I was like, so, you know, I'm just trying to think of ideas, and I've been kicking around this idea about daylighting for a while, and he's like, I was like, did you see that article on the daylighting of the Seoul River? And he goes, yeah, I wrote that.
We looked at the map, so where our site, and we got a great map that shows all the sanitary lines and rivers and stuff underneath the city as a public works map. And there it was, Central Avenue, which is wider than everything else. I mean, if you experience, Central Avenue has the width of being a boulevard, like a Broadway, with trees down the middle. Just proportionally, it's this great street. And if you go 2 blocks away from it in any direction, it gets exciting. You have Little Italy and Harbor East and Fells Point and Butcher's Hill. You know, you have neat stuff, but it's as if this poor river, you know, the karma of putting this river underground is just shooting it for this whole neighborhood.
One of my biggest challenges as the Baltimore Harbor waterkeeper is, you know, here we are trying to protect a water body that people don't really feel that connected to. Most people don't live on the waterfront. Those that do are clearly among the more affluent people, which is a minority of our city. And the rest of the people who live far away from the harbor don't really realize that everything that drains out of our city ends up into the harbor and the Patapsco River. Creating a connection between people and their waterways is, to me, one of the things that we can do to try to get people to care about water and water quality. And so if you start to put water in their backyards, or return the water to their backyard so that they can see it, to me that's the beginning of creating an ethic. There's really nice capacity to create a system, a whole system, not just opening up a stretch of the road.
You'd get some water quality benefit just because you would have variation in the hydraulics, in which you get slow water, fast water, it's moving through gravel. That creates sort of an aerating effect.
Unearthing Harford Run has a number of really positive effects. If you actually give it a natural bottom as opposed to a concrete bottom, you have an area where plant life can live. Plants actually filter out some pollution, so it could actually serve to clean some of the water as it travels. You slow the water down as it makes its way to the harbor, so you're not getting massive gushes of pollutant-laden water. And it provides habitat for other things too, so you have birds coming in and insects. Also, Unearthing Harford Run would give any Department of Public Works the opportunity to prevent further pollution from going in there. And that's only the beginning. And the other benefits are creating a wonderful community area, boulevard, that could potentially create an entirely new vibe in that community.
Central Avenue is a wide corridor. I would love to see it be tree lined. I'd love to be able to have a very calm traffic situation in which you could ride your bike, up and down. It would be fantastic if there were some shops along the stream so that this not only became sort of a green corridor for pedestrian and bicycle traffic, but it became really a destination.
Being able to walk along the water and watch it, and the kind of grasses and planting that would happen. A channel like this actually has to be able to handle a storm and handle more water at some times than others, and that creates an interesting ecosystem and set of plants and landscape that I don't know that we have a whole lot of in our urban areas. But really, just to think of it, no longer as an alley serving some industries and warehouses, but as a park that runs from the water, all the way up to like Monument Street or vice versa, in this great view corridor.
Frankly, it's the only place I can think of in the city that you can stand 10, 20 blocks away and actually see the water. And so it's this huge corridor of access. And I think that's kind of the story here, is that our entire community doesn't have access to our water resources, and so bringing the access to them and creating the connections is really what this project is about, but doing it in a way that restores the community in a historically sound manner, as opposed to ripping it down and rebuilding it in a way that it wasn't really meant to be.
The infrastructure has to be dealt with. How long can we continue, with a stream that pollutes the harbor like that? We're going to have to deal with this. This is in the cards. These things are going to get addressed. It's where we're going to go because of the ecological and the infrastructure and the quality of life that's all wrapped up in these old bad decisions. And I wrote about this in Soul. Soul looked at this highway that it was disinvested and realized it was going to take $1 billion or something to make this go away and make it into a nicer thing. Which was nothing, because they realized they would probably reap $20 billion of new investment because it wasn't such an awful place to be anymore. And that's exactly, what we have.
The ending of this story is about the people of Baltimore trying to build a better place, trying to recapture what the original attraction to this place was. And really that is about water. It's all about the water.